Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Lovely People webinar. So this evening we have got the lovely Maxine Ball as our guest. And I met Maxine in person at the Resilient Young Minds conference that the lovely Liz and Stu did. I think that was the first time I actually saw you as in the flesh. And then you joined us on our retreat just a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, I absolutely love Max. I love her energy, even when she's drugged up to the eyeballs. And she will explain that, guys, if you're listening to that. Or she might, or maybe, you'll just never know.
You never know.
I would really, really love you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and how this understanding that we share on a Wednesday evening changed things for you.
Right. Hi, everyone. Nice to see quite a few people here. Wow, I'm thrilled. I didn't think anybody would turn up. So that's
just
good.
Thinking.
Yeah, well, yeah. Yes, my thinking. Well, it's quite a huge story, actually, if you would indulge me to tell it. And it literally is a story. So I'll begin it with a once upon a time, because I now see it literally as a story. Really wasn't anything to worry about. But I was the youngest of 12 children, which is quite a huge thing, really, when you think about it. There's a lot of people. So growing up was very interesting, very interesting. We were a Catholic family, very poor, as you would be, but at the same time, I can't say that it was bad, because it wasn't. We had a lot of fun in there as well. The worst thing about my kind of growing up years were my schooling, which was at a Catholic school, which was incredibly cruel and very, very tough. And something that really gave me a dread of education and a real fear of learning, which kind of continued all through my education years. Now, going along with that, as you can imagine, with 12 children, that it's more of a case of crowd control when you're parenting 12 children.
Yes.
So along comes me, number 12, and I'm probably the gobbiest and the bounciest of the lot. And I was a little bit like Tigger, all over the place. Which didn't go down very well when you were sort of supposed to be, seen and not heard. And the crowd control hammer usually landed on me. So being this sort of character that was larger than life and always like this, I pretty much made a nuisance of myself most of the time. I had this massive love of horses as a child, and as you can understand, when you're the youngest of 12, you're not going to get riding lessons, because that's just not going to happen. So, me being me, I searched everybody that had horses, and I hung around with them, and I did everything I could to get near and near in with horses. And I used to go over to a farm on a Saturday with my friend Beverly and just make the most of the time there. We helped out, we did whatever we could on the yard, on the farm, working, and in repayment we would get a ride sometimes if we could. We'd get to be around the horses. I get to do whatever I could with the horses. All the time I was doing this, my dad, bless him, lovely guy, but he kind of was always saying, "You're a pain in the neck, nobody wants you, stop being a pest, they don't want you over there, stop going, they don't like you, you're getting in the way." And for a long time, I took no notice of him, and I just kept doing what I was doing anyway, because like you do when you're a kid, you go up and down, and it just doesn't go in. And then when I got to about 12, and it was a very poignant day, and I remember it like, very my story, I decided to believe him. And I decided that I was a pest and that I was a nuisance and that nobody did like me. And I went to my friend and I said, I'm not coming anymore. And she said, why? And I said, because they don't want us over there. You know, I'm a pain in the neck. And she said, well, I'm still going. And I said, well, I'm not. And I stood in my bedroom window and I watched her drive past to go to the farm and sobbed. I literally broke my heart that day. And that was the day that I started becoming a people pleaser. I really believed that I couldn't please anybody. So that kind of set me up then to, everywhere I went believing that I was a nuisance, a pest, and I wasn't really wanted. And I had to do something to make myself be wanted. So I was always over trying. I was always turning down invitations and just believing that I was a pest and that I wasn't wanted. So, and everywhere I went, I kind of took this story with me. And it made life really difficult and painful, very difficult and painful. And my phone's ringing again, sorry. So with that, I'm going to switch this off. Sorry about this.
That's all right. These are the things that I love about live webinars, and it just kind of shows you, hey, do you know what? Life does what life does, and then we meet it wherever we are, don't we?
And can you believe it? Nobody ever calls me.
Yeah, I can.
And it never happens.
They've heard you're famous and you're on the Lovely People webinar.
Yeah. Right, so back to the story. That set me up for my kind of hard work in life. I then got very interested in psychology and how the mind worked, because I was believing there was something wrong with me, and I thought I needed to be fixed and healed and sorted out, and I needed to be something other than what I was, and I needed to be different. So I trained as a counsellor, worked with kids that had been abused and stuff like that, and that was most of my work for a lot of years. I find that very hard, because when you're coming out of a place of always trying to prove yourself anyway, and trying to be liked and stuff like that, you just get burnt out all the time, because you're constantly trying and you're constantly going on resources that you don't have, because it's coming out of a place of need rather than just being, I was just constantly burning out and getting upset. Now I've got 3 sons, 3 gorgeous sons, and I had a huge kind of enlightenment, if you like, when I was, how old was I? 35, I think. Had this really huge, massive, great big, I'm going to use a G word because I know some people don't like it, but God meeting, which kind of gave me, I know, an absolute new life. It really did. It was incredible. And I started to attend a Christian fellowship. This was after walking away from Catholicism, because I thought that was just totally wrong after my childhood. And found this Christian fellowship, which was completely, great. Everybody was dancing and singing around the place, and it was brilliant. But from the initial kind of finding of that freedom, which was amazing and incredible, because I found love, really. Yeah. I then got back into fear, because I then got back into the teachings of, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. Oh, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. You shouldn't be, things are evil, things like that, that I kind of got fearful about again, which then put me back into that doing and trying to be a good person, trying to be perfect, trying to be everything to everyone. And it just started the whole thing over again. So then I kind of started looking at different therapies and things like that. So I then trained as pretty much, you name it, I trained as it. So I then went on and did Reiki, homeopathy, I did EFT, and I did Psyche. I trained in those modalities and was working with people. I stopped working with children after so long, because I got so burnt out I couldn't do it anymore. I was also in a marriage which was quite difficult, bless him and all that. He was a lovely guy, but he did like the other ladies, shall we say. So this day came that was inevitably going to happen for me, because I was constantly fighting this, trying to be a good person, trying to be lovely and trying to be nice, but inside believing that I was rotten to the core, I was bad and I was evil. Now, it came to this point in my marriage where my husband had decided that really he wanted out of it, but rather than tell me he wanted out of it, he kind of set it up so that it would look like it was my fault. So we had this row one day when I came home and had, you know, a word about something that wasn't done. And he just literally went for me and just said, "You're a nasty bitch. You're a nasty fucking bitch." And at that point, my worst nightmare came true, because somebody had voiced what I believed about myself. And it hit me like a truck so hard that I just literally, I went to the cupboard. I filled my handbag with everything that there was in the cupboard. I took a bottle of water. I drove my car up into the middle of the Quantox. I went down a track, parked my car out of the way where nobody would see me. And I took the lot. I took everything that I could, you know, get my hands on before I went unconscious, which I obviously did after a while. I woke up 4 days later. I didn't know where the hell I was or what the hell had happened to me, because I was 1 minute in a car thinking that was going to be the end of me, and the next minute I'm on my sofa thinking, how the hell did I get here? I woke up. Now, in those 4 days, what had happened is my son had tried to get me on the telephone, and miraculously, because if anybody knows the Quantox, there's not a very good mobile signal up there. I mean, I live just outside of Taunton and there's not a very good mobile signal here. So on the Quantox, it was pretty non-existent, but it wasn't obviously my time to go. And he got through to me, realized something was wrong because I was talking rubbish. I didn't even know that I answered the phone because I was completely unconscious and out of it by this time. I mumbled something about Goathurst, so they came to find me. They thought I was in Goathurst. I wasn't. And then they called the police, and the police finally found me at about, I think it was about 8:30 at night when they found me. Well, this was at the beginning of March, and it was very cold. So I was kind of hypothermic by this time because I'd been in the car for a long time and unconscious. They got me to hospital. They got me through the night. They said that, you know, I literally had, if they'd been half an hour later, I wouldn't have made it. I wouldn't have been here. I'd have been gone. But I'm supposed to be here. So that was what happened. So I woke up after 4 days, and I was in a really big depression, really, really big depression. Started seeing a psychiatrist who kind of helped me get out of my marriage, which was quite a tough thing to do, because he was, bless him, I really, you know, I don't hold any malice at all, but was quite controlling and at the same time a bit of a naughty boy. But anyway, so I got out of my marriage. That was, I think, the thing as well that I was dreading. I knew it was going to be hard and I knew it was going to be tough and I didn't really want to deal with it. So I was quite angry when I came round from that overdose. And it took me a long time to get over that because I just didn't want to be here. I really didn't want to be here. So fast forward, a couple of years on, I, out of my marriage and everything, started to do all the other modalities that I was doing. I'd given up working with children, and started working with my partner Neil now, and we run a business together, but was also still doing my clients on, you know, my private clients, not children anymore. I thought I'd fed up with being told to F off all the time by kids. I wanted to work with people who wanted to get somewhere in their lives. So that was when all the EFT and everything else started up again. The Psych-K I was facilitating. I went on a retreat with some of the girls that came to the retreat with us last week, and we formed a little group that we were chatting in. And the lovely Karen, she sent through a link about America TUI had done a little cartoon thing about the principles, the 3 principles. Now, I listened to that, and the first thing that hooked me into that was that nothing to do, because I'm very lazy. And I liked that straight away. I thought, nothing to do. And that I perked up and was like, okay, tell me more. What do you mean there's nothing to do?
That doesn't sound to me like laziness. That sounds to me like wisdom. You'd been doing all those things all those years, and it seems to me like wisdom too.
Yeah, absolutely. From that, it was on YouTube. It just rolled on, and the next thing that came on was Michael Neill was being interviewed by somebody regarding the 3 principles. Now, I was at work, which is a lovely way to listen, because I was just listening, because I know what I'm doing at work. I don't really have to think about it. So it was just going in while I was busying myself, beautifully passive. And he was talking about his problem with wishing that, his suicidal tendencies when he was a boy, and how he'd had this experience where he felt like he was being sucked out of the window by a vacuum cleaner. Tried to ring the suicide line and couldn't get through, which I was in hysterics about. And then he went on to say that the next day, he just had this realization that he didn't want to die. He just thought he wanted to die. I was walking literally across the room, and it stopped me in my tracks. And everything, it was just like a set of dominoes going off. It was just like all going off all at once. All these connections, everything about everything I'd ever kind of learned. I just started laughing and laughing and laughing. And it was like this light bulb moment of complete relief, and just this huge load was taken off my shoulders in an instant. And I just knew that was it. I knew that was it, and that was everything that I had been carrying around for all those years was, and I know, Beck, you're going to scream at me now, was just a thought.
No, it was the entire creative essence of the universe.
Absolutely, the entire group. But that was killing me, because I was actually using it against myself completely. And I was telling myself I was a fat, ugly, stupid, thick woman, that I was no good, I was lazy, I was ugly, I was horrible, nobody liked me. And that was my story. And then in that instant, I saw it as just thought. And I realised that none of it was true. None of it. And that up until that moment, I'd been living in an absolute story of untruth. And it was just the most amazing thing that I've ever known. And the freedom that came from that was incredible. I felt like a new woman completely. And I just knew that life was very, very different from then on. And it has been. So that then started my complete obsession with the 3 principles. My little tool bag of everything else that I've been carrying around, that was just like Michael Neill said, was keeping him just 2 weeks away from that black dog of absolute despair. And I can't tell you how many, times I would rush to those things. I'd be sitting there doing this, crying, tapping away, but really desperate to get rid of this horrible feeling that I had in me of just self-hatred and loathing. And literally just those words, and that was it. I just saw it for what it was. I saw it for what it was. I saw it for a story. I saw it for an untruth, and the whole lot came tumbling down, and all of the things that had kept those beliefs and those horrific things in place for all those years were gone. And I always believed that, me and my thought were like that. So it came from me, it was mine, so it must be true. And in that instant, I saw that is not true. It's not my thought. It doesn't belong to me. It means nothing about me. And I am not any of that. I am a wonderful creation that is, enjoying life in a completely different way now, and literally embracing life in a totally different way and loving it. Whereas I can swear every morning I woke up and wished it wouldn't happen. I used to dread it every day. Every day was hard. Every day was painful. And every day I didn't really want to see. And now I wake up and go, yay, what are we going to do today? So that's the end of the story. And my story starts every day, all fresh every day, and whatever happens, happens. And yeah, it was just a story. A pretty big one, but it was incredible to leave behind, incredible to not feel the impact of it anymore, and incredible to live free to be a being. I'm not a doing anymore. I'm not a human doer. I'm not a pleaser. I don't care what anybody thinks about me anymore, even my hair. It really, it's just a totally different experience, a different life, and a different, whole way of being. So thank you, 3 principles. Yeah. The end.
Incredible. That's amazing. That is brilliant. And I don't think it's the end. I think it's the end of that chapter and the beginning of something.
You got it. And my toolbox is totally gone. It's in the bin. It doesn't exist anymore. I just dropped it. Like, what is the point? I mean, up until that point, I believed there was something that needed a toolbox and needed fixing. And I saw in that instant, I don't need fixing. I'm not broken. I never was. There's nothing wrong. I'm fine. I'm, a perfect creation and exactly who and where and what I should be. And it's just been a totally different life ever since. So, hallelujah, freedom.
That is beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I know when you came on the retreat, and obviously you kind of mentioned a little bit about your hair then. So it would be, you obviously had this massive shift, this huge change. But I know from my own experience, we kind of still have thoughts, don't we, human beings? And life kind of still does life. And it doesn't always do exactly what we think it should. So do you want to share maybe a little bit about your hair that you mentioned, what's gone on for you there, and share, what happened to you or what was going on for you at the time when you came to our retreat, so people can see that this understanding, it's an ongoing thing. It still kind of helps us through other things, and we do have other things, life still does. We still have thinking sometimes.
We do. I mean, well, going back to the story, if I can.
Yeah.
When I was a young girl, when we played kiss chase, I was always chasing the boys. They wouldn't chase me. They used to go. They'd all get to me and go, "Ugh, ball," and run away. And I'd be like, "No one wants to kiss me." Well, when I got to about 13, I grew my hair, and I had very thick, long hair. And suddenly I went from being, ooh, ball, to, ooh, ball. And suddenly I got an awful lot of interest from an awful lot of men that suddenly wanted to know me, all for the wrong reasons, unfortunately. But my hair became a very important thing to me because, along with being a people pleaser, I wanted to be somebody who was liked and somebody who was acceptable. So I did everything I could to be acceptable. And that meant always looking nice, always dressing well, always having my hair perfect, my makeup, my, whatever. So last year, after being around the principals, feeling far more comfortable with myself, my niece, bless her, was diagnosed with a really nasty disease. Please don't ask me to say what it's called because I really can't pronounce it. It's something like granulosa with polyangine something or other. And it basically attacks the lungs, the breathing, the kidneys with these horrible growths that you can't get rid of. And it's horrific. She's only 47. And I was so moved and so kind of touched by, where she is. And she's on her own, single mum. She works, bless her, look, she actually works with terminal patients. So that's pretty tough. And excuse me, just gonna have some water. I thought, what can I do? What can I do to help her? Apart from doing usual things, like I could help her a little bit here and there with some money and stuff like that. I thought, I'll do a head shave. I'll do a sponsored head shave. I thought I'm going to raise some funds and I'm going to do what I can, even if it just gives her enough time off so that when she's really sick, she can take some time off and it'll take some pressure off of her. So I started raising the funds in October last year, and it was set for New Year's Day. My sister was getting married in between Christmas and New Year, so she said, please don't do it before I get married. I said, oh, that's fine. So New Year's Day came, my sisters came around, and bless them, we were sat. There was Nikki, my lovely sister, and Debbie, my lovely sister, and we were all having a play around and chopping my hair because we could. And then they started crying and they said, I can't cut your hair off, Max, I can't do it. So I said, oh, come here. And I just picked up the clippers and I just sat there and shaved off my hair. And I really just was like, I don't care. It doesn't mean anything. It's not me. It doesn't define me anymore. It doesn't make me acceptable anymore. It doesn't say a thing about who I am. It's just hair. And it's actually, making a difference to somebody else's life. And also, I'm grey and I'm not blonde. And I thought, I'm fed up with covering these blooming grey hairs every 5 weeks with this stupid dye which is costing me a fortune. I thought, I'm just going to have my natural highlights anyway and stop it. I'm just going to be who I am. And that's it. And I felt so empowered by what I did. It was amazing. And it was all going really, really well. And I felt great until I bumped into somebody who said to me about my partner had been apparently saying he didn't like it. And that actually I reminded him of my brother. And then, I don't know why, because he's a quite good looking brother. But I suppose my partner wouldn't really fancy him. But it kind of gave me a bit of a wobble. That gave me a wobble, and then I started to get into thinking about, oh, hello, hang on a minute. He doesn't see me like that anymore. Although I've got to bless him, he's been so supportive. He really has. Probably been my biggest supporter through it. But obviously it's a shock to him. He got together with a blonde-haired lady 7 years ago. He's now ended up with a grey, bald little fatty. So it's kind of a big shock, really.
You are gorgeous, Max. You're amazing.
But it kind of goes like that, but that's how life is, because the principles don't tell you that your life is going to be happily ever after. It tells you that you're going to have ups and you're going to have downs and you're going to be okay regardless of them. And that is my experience. So some days I look in the mirror and I think I look cracking, and other days I look in the mirror and think, oh my God, where's my hat? I need my hat today. And all of it is okay. It's all okay. It's all fine. And now, instead of it defining me and meaning that I've got to go on the Quantox and take a bag full of tablets with me, it just means I'm just having a bit of a shit day and I'm going to be fine tomorrow when this goes. And I don't have to do anything about it apart from put a hat on. But yeah, so coming to the retreat was again fantastic. I mean, I had bless her, my little granddaughter gave me a lovely cough, which was nice, and I coughed a disc out in my back. So I had an MRI which showed that I had this prolapse disc, but I thought, I'm still coming to this retreat, I'm not going to miss it, I don't care. So bless the lovely Karen, my friend Karen came and picked me up and she brought me down, and you were all very lovely and looked after me. Yes. I was on extremely strong painkillers, so I did sort of kind of mong out of it a bit, but was there for quite the most of it, and I was fed, which was lovely. But again, coming out of that experience was, I was talking just before we started the webinar about how the drugs I was on were really strong. So I was on diazepam and amitriptyline and codeine, to kill the pain, because it was excruciating. It was my backbone and all down my leg.
You were clearly in a lot of pain. Bless you.
Very painful.
So grateful that you came.
I was determined. I missed last year because we had a gig and I was singing and I couldn't make it, and I was so upset that I missed last year. I thought, I am not going to miss this year. I don't care what happens, I'm going. So I was completely monged out, but I really had this chatting to Elaine. It was my friend Elaine today about the experience, and I was saying how horrible being on those drugs were, because I just was not myself at all. I was in this really horrible state of drugness, and I took them literally only as much as I needed to, and then I stopped as soon as I could. And then I had this revelation that, or in chatting it through with Elaine, that people actually go out of their way to get themselves in that state so that they don't have to feel. And I mean, I can't think of anything worse, but to be in that much pain mentally that you have to drug yourself to get yourself into that state so you don't feel your feelings is so sad and so painful for people. But this understanding is so important to get out there, because it makes all the difference between having to get out of themselves to being themselves without needing to kill that or deaden it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes total sense. I remember having a couple of conversations with you at the retreat, and you saying to me, I'm not myself, I'm kind of in this fog, I'm not me, I'm normally quite different to this. And like you say, that people would take themselves. I mean, our business, as you know, everything we do is kind of around dare to be you, and it is because so many people will do anything not to be with the thinking they have not, and it is a simple misunderstanding because they don't know the truth of who they are. And when we bring people back, how you've been on this webinar tonight, what you've shared with us, that's what happens to people when they get pointed back to the truth of who they are. The amazing revelations that you've had, life changing. That's what happens when people see who they are, when people dare to look in that direction and see the truth of who they are.
Absolutely.
It's just brilliant.
Mm.
I was wondering if anyone who is on the call tonight, anyone who's here, I wonder if anyone has got, we have had a little thing from Emma, who said she's had to go. She has gone now, but if you watch the replay, thank you, Emma. She's got to go off somewhere else, so she couldn't stay the whole time, but she did want to listen in for a bit. So Emma says how much she loves you and how much, listening to your story, how full of love she feels. And I'm sure that's true of all of us. Your story, even though it was very moving.
Story.
Yeah.
It's on the time, no more.
But I just wondered if anyone else on the call would like to make any comments or ask any questions or come in with anything. So we'll just kind of put that out there. You can either unmute yourself, or if you have got your picture showing, you can wave your hands around. Every time I do this, Ju does this to scratches her ear, and I think, is she putting her if anyone would like to, join in this conversation at all, have a comment or a question or anything like that, please feel free to jump in.
I can waffle on for hours otherwise.
That's perfect. Well, nobody's seeing me, but if anyone decides to jump in, I don't know whether Anne's moving her hands around. Okay, I will.
Anne is.
Why is the unmute not working? Is she?
No,
I think you're unmuted now, Anne.
I'm unmuted now, right. Right. I was, the thing that struck me was, I also did lots of other, techniques and things, as you know, and all the EFT and all of that stuff. But it must, for people who haven't had the experience themselves, it sounds just absolutely amazing that you just heard one single thing and everything changed. Like, you didn't have to do the technique and you didn't have to keep doing it again. And I know you can't explain, I mean, I understand because I know what it's like, but it must sound very peculiar to people who haven't had the experience. That you just heard something so simple, and so many people say that. That's such a common story in the three principles, and people who have had the understanding that they just hear one thing, and then of course you hear other things later on, and something else changes and so on. But to have that massive an effect just from hearing one little thing. I mean, obviously it's not little, but it seems like one little thing. It's such I loved your story for giving that, for showing people how that can happen, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah
I think it came from a lifetime of searching, and it was such a simple thing, but it was such a huge thing, because it for me, I suppose I've done so many things, and I'm not discrediting any of them, because all of them made up the tapestry of where I am now and how I'm where I am now. But for me, it was just like the final piece of a jigsaw puzzle going in and completing the picture. And as soon as it made sense in the picture, it was like dominoes, like I said, going down, everything just went into place. Then the whole picture showed. And I just saw exactly what it was that was keeping me broken and keeping me from believing that I needed to fix myself. And it was thought. And that was all. That was the thing that nobody had actually, I'd heard, sort of, because obviously with Psyche especially, you're changing beliefs and things like that, which I thought was fantastic, until I realized that the minute my thinking changed, it would go back again. As soon, while I was thinking the nice thing that I was putting in, it was great. But the minute my thoughts reverted back, I was back to square one again. But once I saw that thought and I know, Beck, you're going to kill me, is just thought.
Beck loves you way too much to kill you.
It's huge and it's powerful, but that's the thing with thought. It is massive, and it has the power to create wars, and it has the power to create peace. Yeah. And that is huge. But when you see it for what it is, it creates more peace than wars. Mm. That is where I say it's just a thought, because thought can cause so much damage and break so many people. But when they see it for what it is, and that it isn't truth, none of it, you've got a completely different picture in front of you. And suddenly things make sense, because you're not defined by what this is telling you anymore. And I've read, you know the chimp, what's the chimp thing where they talk about
the paradox, like that.
Yeah, the chimp paradox. Oh, this chimp on your shoulder, and constantly thought that I had this, love-hate thing going on in me. And when I saw it, that it was thought and nothing more, and that isn't true, that is what gives it the power. And that is what changes everything, because you cannot argue with that. And you don't need to fix it. You don't need to fix it. You just need to see it. And that is where it's so powerful. So for all the other things I did, and I don't regret them, because, they did save my life and did keep me, away from that horrible place of wanting to not be here anymore again. Although I did. That's the difference that the power of the principles have. It's the way the mind works, and when you understand that, and you're understanding the understanding, you're not fighting yourself anymore. You're seeing yourself, and you can forgive yourself, and you can love yourself, and you can have this whole relationship with yourself, which is totally different. And like I said, if you do have a down day, because we all do have them, you just see it for a down day, and that's it. You don't say, it's the end of me. I am that nasty fucking bitch that he told me I was, that I believed I was. It's just thought. And I just go, do you know what? I'm just feeling a bit low today. That's all. It'll go. I don't even try and inquire after it anymore. Whereas before, I would analyze everything to the nth degree. I would pick it. I would look at it. I would work out why that meant that, and that linked to this part of my childhood, and that linked to that part of my childhood, and because this happened to me, I was raped when I was 17, it linked to that, and all these things that link to different things to make me this screwed up, mucked up, nasty, horrible, evil person that I thought I was, gone. I don't need to inquire anymore. I don't need to search. I don't need to look. I don't need to find. I just need to know it's just thought, and it will go. I don't have to do anything about it. I just have to leave it alone, and a fresh thought will come in its time, and I'll be in a different place, and there is nothing to do. And that is so healing. It changes your life completely. And that's what the power of these principles are, and that is why I think it should be in every school, doctor's surgery, psychiatrist's office, because the rest of it is all just bunkum, to be honest. It's all a load of bunkum.
But when the first experience I had of the three principles was when I was given Somebody Should Have Told Us as a present, and I read Somebody Should Have Told Us, and I didn't quite get it at first, but when I read it the second time, and I did, I was so pissed off that I had spent all these years looking for this answer and asking for this answer, and why hadn't it been given to me before?
It's just like the book says, somebody should have told us.
Yeah.
Well, this is
Yeah.
what we're all about. This is what the Lovely People webinars are about. We're doing our bit
Long may it go.
to kind of to get it out there, you know, for people to hear this, for people to hear stories just like yours, Max, you know. And we had Anne on a little while ago, and she told her story as well. You know, there's some absolutely mind-blowing stories that point to what is possible, and it's equally, you know, I've known people who have kind of come across the principles, and it reminds me sometimes a little bit about, you know, when we're around a baby, and we don't notice that it's changing over time, because they don't have this moment when everything falls away. They just kind of have these little sort of shifts, and it's like you're with a baby, and if you take a photograph, you know, on day one, and then you were to take a photograph 6 months later, there's a huge difference. But because it's kind of taking place very gradually, we don't necessarily see it. And I mean, my guess is as well, from that moment that you had that huge insight, you've been having other insights as well, which have continued, you know, this, you know, continued and added to what you've seen and confirmed what you've seen. And I'm guessing as well that you've had some days when you've had thoughts when you think, didn't see anything, don't know what I'm talking about, there wasn't any insight, there wasn't any.
I mean, it kind of goes through, I think everybody that's come across the principles have this sort of huge euphoric moment, like a honeymoon period, where you're like, wow, woo, think it's amazing. And then you suddenly start trying to think about your thinking. You start thinking about your thinking, because something will come in, a downer will come in, and you'll start thinking, well, what was I thinking? What was I thinking? What thought did I think that's making me feel like this? I must have been thinking, what am I? And I got a little bit caught up for a little while with thinking about my thinking, which was completely crazy, because it's a bit like a dog chasing its tail, because that's all it is. You just go round and round and round. And then you kind of, I went to every single thing I could possibly go to. So I was on YouTube constantly. I was going to, you know, different trainings and stuff like that. So I saw Michael Neal, Rudy, all these, you know, everything, you guys, you know, onto everything that I could find. Also looked in Taunton for something. There was nothing here. And I thought, okay, there's a gap here. Nobody's saying this needs to be said. So I started a group up. I do a meetup every Thursday, the last Thursday of the month, with the lovely Emma, who went off earlier on. She does it with me. The pair of us come together and we share the principles with a group of people at my house, which is really lovely. I've just been contacted by a GP as well. I'm really excited about that. He's just moved to Taunton, and he's contacted me through the meetup and said he really can't make the Thursdays, but would really like to meet up and take this further. So there's a chance of getting into a GP surgery and doing more with this. It's just so exciting, you know, really exciting. And I just encourage anybody to just, you know, keep looking, keep seeing what you see. Like you say, insights are always coming. You get them at the strangest times. Even driving the car, you know, I sort of driving along one night, and I don't like driving in the dark very much. I'm fine driving, but in the dark I don't like it. And I thought, well, I don't know why I'm worrying, because I can see as far as I need to see. And just that insight of, you know, I had to go. I was going down to a 3P meeting actually, and it was in Sidford, and it was down all these horrible windy roads, and I was like not liking that very much. And I was thinking, well, don't panic, I'm okay. And just had that insight that you can get from here to the other side of the world with just that much, you know, headlight. You see what you need to see, and that's, you know, so constantly you're getting downloads, you know, insights, fresh seeing. Like today, when I suddenly realized, oh my goodness, you know, the effect those drugs had on me and how much I hated it, and how, you know, people actively search for that so that they can get out of being in that state, or just being normal, you know, just to be out of themselves. And you suddenly sort of have a compassion and a different feeling, and you think, oh my goodness, that's really painful to be in that place of pain all the time. You just don't want to be there. But yeah, I'm not saying in any way, like you say, that life is fantastic, because it's not. It's a roller coaster. But whereas it was a roller coaster before, and I didn't ride it, I endured it and I hated it. I'm riding it now, and I understand that I'm up there and I'm down there, and it's all fine, and it means nothing about me, and it says nothing about me and who I am, which is just a completely different experience from the last 55 years that I've had. And I'm not a day over 21.
Amazing, isn't it? Don't think any of us are.
Not at all.
What I'm hearing, like in your story that you told, in the way that you didn't manage to commit suicide, and in everything that what's coming to me when I'm listening to you is this guidance, this wisdom that we all have. And even in our darkest moments, when we look back, we can see it was always there. We were always being guided, and whatever, we get the guidance we need in that moment. And it seems, and it feels to me that when we start to have these insights and we begin to recognize and we begin to see those things in our life, it's almost like it kind of cracks open a way that we will get more of that. Or maybe it is that we recognize it and see it and bring it in. And I don't know, I don't quite know how it works, but it just looks to me like we open ourselves up to live, to be guided and lived in that way more than arguing with this system all the time. And when you were talking at the beginning, I was exhausted with you kind of saying all the things that I'm trying to please people, I'm trying to make sure, I'm trying to run the whole world single-handed here. And we're not meant to do that. That's not our job, is it?
Not at all. And it's kind of, I look back now and see that the worst times of my life were my biggest blessings.
Yeah.
Which I, at the time, thought being in control, I have to make my life be perfect, was really uncomfortable. But life knew better than I did. It always knows better than we do. And when you let life live through you rather than you trying to live it and make it fit you, the ride is so much easier. And I really do see my biggest blessings were the worst. I mean, that suicide attempt was such a black time, but oh my God, it was such a blessing. It really was so rich in blessings that, I'm so grateful for it now. I wouldn't advocate anyone to go and do it. But I really believe,
we're definitely not saying that.
I really don't do that, and it's not nice. For 4 days, I've got no clue what happened in 4 days, and that's really interesting as well, because we all, sort of believe that time means something, and it really doesn't at all. Time is us, and it isn't a thing. Time, And in those 4 days, apparently I had interviews with people, with psychiatrists and stuff I know nothing about. I can't even remember them. I don't know they happened, but they did. And I really have this sense and this sort of kind of trust in, when it's your time, it's your time.
Yeah.
I'm not frightened of death at all. I'm really not frightened of it, because I don't believe that there is such a thing, because we're just energy that carries on. I mean, I kind of have this sort of little thought of, when you've got a bubble blower, and you're blowing a bubble, well, it starts to make a form, and I kind of see us as this sort of form that's coming out of this bubble blower, but we're constant, and it never goes away. It's always there. It's just making different forms, and kind of, and when this ceases to be available to be looked at, I haven't gone anywhere. I'm still here, but in the energy of everything that everything is, that we all are, which is that wisdom, that constant that is always there, and just that, you know, that we can rest in that. We can rest in that in times of the blackest times, even when, you know, when it isn't nice. It's okay. It's okay for it to not be nice. Just let it not be nice, and know that it will be okay, because the wisdom knows better than we do. There is nothing to drive, it's driving. It's just it's been incredible journey. So yeah, just no fear. There's no fear now. I don't fear death at all. You know, but I don't fear life, which is even better, because I did.
This is the thing, life can feel like something scary, can't it? But it's great to just live it and allow it to live through us. That is just brilliant.
Yeah, and that crazy character that I was born as is me, and it's back again. You know that game that you have that hammer and you hit things on the head when they come up. That was like me in my childhood, because I keep banging my head up and my parents would be like, "Get shut, go away," you know. Whereas now there's no one to hit me down with a hammer, so it's just look out, world, because I'm here and I'm not going to be banged down anymore. You know, it's just not going to happen.
Sounds a bit like us.
I love that. Yes, you crazy lot.
Yeah. I think we're obviously Lucy's not crazy at all, but
she's the worst one of all. What's she on about? Bonkers.
It's just beautiful, and thank you so much for sharing that with us this evening. That's just been absolutely lovely. You are officially a lovely person.
Do I get a badge?
You have to get a lovely person tattoo.
Deb, put it away.
I will. I've never had a tattoo. Just a badge will do. That'll be fine.
No, it's permanent. You have to get a
tattoo. You're a lovely person forever. You're fixed.
Okay. Right. Bless you.
No, that was just amazing. It was really lovely. It was really, really, really great to hear your story and to find out a little bit more about you. That was brilliant. Thank you so much for this evening.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me on. It's been my pleasure.
It was our pleasure. So that was great. So who is our next lovely person guest?
This was our last Lovely People webinar that's weekly, and as from March we're going back to monthly. So our next webinar is on the 27th of March, which is 4 weeks away, and our guest will be Jackie Ford.
Oh, exciting.
So, and then I'm just going to send to everyone a link if you're interested in our online membership. There's some free stuff and some paid stuff, and there's loads of stuff going on over there. So I've just sent the link to everyone. If you're interested and want to have a look at that, go and have a look, because there's loads of stuff, including more of these webinars and bits and pieces and stuff. So
yeah, we're getting busy sharing with all the places we're sharing, which is really, really great. It's really absolutely brilliant. So yeah, we've had to shift around some stuff that we're doing, haven't we? So yeah, we're going to go to months. We don't want to stop. I love doing the Lovely People webinars. I absolutely don't want to stop doing it, but they're going to be monthly. And yeah, but who knows? Keep watching this space. You just never know. It's so. Yeah. Thank you everybody for being here this evening and watching this webinar, and that's it.
For joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. It was just amazing.
Thanks, see you all.
Bye everybody.
Bye everyone.
Bye everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.